I call this the capture principle. So what I thought we would do is begin with a couple of card effects and then look at why they work. And then we'll explain how you can use this most remarkable property to create your own amazing card effects. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. So I have this shuffled deck of cards. What I need to do is I need to choose a couple of helper cards here. So, and you can see what they are. Okay, how about, how about the Queen? That would be fine. Queen of Diamonds. What's another one that we can readily remember as a pair? Oh, what about the King of Diamonds? That's a pair that's easy to remember. So we'll start with the King of Diamonds and the Queen of Diamonds. Very good. Now, what I need you to do is I'm going to have you dictate how many cards we deal, where we deal them from. So if you were here, you could truly make these choices. So I'll begin dealing the cards until you tell me to stop. Stop there. And then I'll take some from somewhere in the middle until you tell me to stop. Stop there. There. Okay. And then I'll take some from the bottom. Stop. Okay, very good. So we have this random collection of cards from various places actually in the deck. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sandwich these two. So remember, King of Diamonds and the Queen of Diamonds we'll put on the bottom. So we've sandwiched our little packet that you chose between those two helper cards. And now what we're going to do is we're going to perform a shuffle that gives you a lot of choices as the spectator. So how this will work, it'll seem kind of similar, but it technically is different. So I'm going to begin dealing the cards into piles until you say stop. And then I'll deal into the next pile. Maybe you say stop there. Stop, okay. One more, okay. And then we'll deal, okay, great. So this is called the first shall be last, the last shall be first. Now that's just a fancy name for dealing out the cards in the way that we have, and then stacking them in reverse order. So the last cards dealt are the first ones picked up, okay? So we have this collection of cards that really has completely been decided by you, and you saw the helper cards, so you helped me with that, I guess. So what was the first helper card? Wasn't it the King? So I'm going to go ahead and just spell King, K-I-N-G, so King. And the second helper card was the Queen, right? Q-U-E-E-N, very good, okay? And so at this point, we would like to see, where that's brought us, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just, without doing anything sneaky, I'm going to just go ahead and ribbon spread these on the table. And I want you to look for our two helper cards and see if they've kind of sandwiched or captured anything interesting. So let's see. Oh, yeah, there you go. So there's the King of Diamonds. And then I thought there you go. There's the Queen of Diamonds. Now, do you notice anything interesting? Let's see, did they sandwich any? What the heck? We have a royal flush in diamonds. How in the world did that happen? And how did you just happen to make a whole boatload of choices that led to this result? I think this is evidence that the rich truly do get richer, because it seems that Lady Luck is always smiling down upon them. Okay, so that is the first effect, okay? And it uses this capture principle, okay? So we'll talk about a little bit later, why this works and how you can apply this principle to different situations. Okay, the second effect is called why everyone loves them. Okay, now I just realized that the juxtaposition here of the titles might have you believe that the them is referring to the rich. It's not. It's completely separate. In fact, the them, I can tell you right now, is referring to two of the most popular cards in the entire deck. The first one is the Ace of Spades, and the other one's the Queen of Hearts. Okay, so that's what the them is referring to. So sorry about that. Okay, so for this effect, what we need is a truly shuffled deck of cards. So if you were here, I'd have you mix this to your heart's content. And then we need to just go through and grab the Ace of Spades and the Queen of Hearts. Ace of Spades and the Queen of Hearts. Oh, there's the Ace of Spades. There you go. Oh, there's the Queen of Hearts. Okay. So these are two of the most beloved cards in the entire deck. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose what I call two prediction cards. Now, because of the camera bearing down on us, I'll have to go off camera to choose those. Otherwise, it's not much fun if you see the prediction cards ahead of time. Now, one thing I want to point out is you can, right now, if you were here, I'd have you mix these cards as much as you would like. You can do a table wash, whatever you'd like. And then you just hand the cards to me. And then I would choose these two prediction cards without disturbing the order of any of the other cards. So you need to know that that's what I'm doing. And when we go into the tutorial, you'll see that that's the case. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera just for a second to grab a couple of prediction cards. And I'll just set those down, face down, on the table for now. Maybe that one's okay. And that one's probably fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and just set these down like that. You can keep an eye on those prediction cards. And from this point, I need you to choose a bunch of cards coming from the top, middle, and the bottom. It will be completely a free choice. So I'll begin dealing the cards into a pile, single pile here, until you say stop. And then I'll take some from the middle. Stop. Okay. And then I'll take some from the bottom. Stop there. Okay. So we have this random collection of cards from across the deck, actually. And now what we're going to do is we're going to sandwich the cards that you just chose between, now remember, it's the ace on top and the queen on the bottom, okay? And we want to mix these cards further and give you all of the power, all of the freedom here. So this time we're going to perform something called the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Now it's a wonderful shuffle because of the interaction. You're giving the spectator just a whole bunch of choices and freedom as to how things are done. So how this works is I begin dealing into a single pile here until you say stop, and then I begin dealing into another pile until you say stop. Maybe you say stop right there and stop there, okay? And because it's the first shall be last, the last shall be first, we stack from right to left. We stack in the opposite order to which they were dealt. And if you think about it, that kind of helps to mix the cards further, okay? So we have this kind of random collection of cards, and, you know, with the ace of spades and the queen of hearts kind of sandwiching things originally, and now we've mixed them. So what we're going to do now is simply spell the words ace and queen. So see, because ace was the first card, I believe. So A-C-E, drop the rest on top, and then queen, Q-U-E-E-N. Okay, very good. So we've spelled those two names. So what we'd like to do now is just simply see where all of your choices have brought us. Where have your choices brought us? Okay. Well, what we're looking for here is, if you remember, the ace and the queen were kind of sandwiching the whole packet, okay? So we're kind of interested to know what kinds of cards they're sandwiching now. Okay, so I spot the ace of spades there, and to the right I see the queen of hearts. Can you see that? Okay, so maybe we'll move them down here. Okay, it looks like our two helper cards have sandwiched 2 cards here. Now, I don't know if those cards mean anything to you. Let's see, Jack of Diamonds and the 6 of Diamonds. Well, they have the same suit. But, oh, yeah, remember, we had a couple of prediction cards, right? I pulled out some prediction cards. Well, what are these? Oh, that's interesting. It's the companion card to the Jack of Diamonds. There's no way this is the 6 of Hearts. I can't believe it. I'm thinking back to what we did and all of the choices made by you. And I followed your instructions, I believe, perfectly. How in the world did it lead to this outcome? That the 2 cards captured by the ace of spades and the queen of hearts are the companion cards to my prediction cards. I can now see why these 2 cards are so loved. They are amazing. Okay, so that is the second performance of this principle, the capture principle. Okay, so now let's look at what the capture principle is and how it works and how you can use it, okay? And then we'll apply it to these 2 performances that we have just shown you. Okay, so here is the capture principle. So let me go ahead and just define some of these little variables here, or some of the symbols down below. Okay, so I will have C with an asterisk represent the first capturing card. So in the performance that we just showed, that would be the ace of spades, right, is what we put on top. And then the C double asterisk is the second capturing card. So it would have been the queen of hearts just now. Okay, and then in blue, these are the cards that we hope to capture between these 2 at the end. Okay, so those are the ones. So, so in the original performance of The Rich Get Richer, the cards being captured were the Ace of Diamonds, 10 of Diamonds, and Jack of Diamonds. And the ones being captured just now in Why Everybody Loves Them, it was the companion cards to the prediction cards I selected. And now in green here, this R, this represents the, quote, remaining cards. And these cards, we call them indifferent cards, meaning the identity of these cards is not in any way important. In some ways, they're just kind of filler cards. Okay, so how the packet needs to be set up for this capture principle to work is you have to have your 2 capturing cards on either end, top and bottom. Now, immediately below this top capturing card needs to be the set of cards that you're going to capture in the end, and then you'll have some number of just kind of filler cards, indifferent cards after that, okay? So the thing to do is, if you think about the steps that I went through, I dealt out, now, kind of once we built this, I dealt out a certain number of cards. So in the case of the King of Diamonds and the Queen of Diamonds, I spelled out King, K-I-N-G, okay? Now, K-I-N-G has 4 letters, which is 1 more than the 3 cards that I captured, which were the Ace of Diamonds, 10 of Diamonds, and Jack of Diamonds, okay? So you have to deal out 1 more card than the number of cards to be captured, and that's what I did. Or in the case of the Why Everyone Loves Them, I just needed to capture the 2 companion cards. How did I do that? I had to deal out 3. So 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 cards. Well, there's 3 letters in the name Ace. So I just spelled out ACE, and that took care of that step. So if you deal out 1 more than the number of cards to be captured, the order of the cards will be reversed. That's what happens when you deal out cards to the table. Okay? And then from there, all we need to do is we simply need to drop the remaining cards on top, the remaining cards in your hand, on top of the ones dealt to the table. Well, that would be these remaining cards. These are cards here, these indifferent cards. Now, their order is going to be the same as it originally was. We haven't reversed those in any way. So you drop those on top, okay? Well, technically, you're done, right? You're done. Because look, your 2 capturing cards have captured the cards to be captured. Okay, those are in between those 2. Okay, so what I did, and what I recommend that you do, is it's nice to not have the capturing cards at either the top or the bottom. So dealing out somewhere between, say, 2 and n minus 2, that just means 2 fewer than all of these indifferent cards, will guarantee that the capturing cards won't be on either extreme of the packet, right? They'll be kind of buried in the middle, which I think just has a better look to it at the very end, okay? So that prevents the capturing cards from being too close to either the top or the bottom of the packet. Okay, now this is extremely important. This is not where we began the effect, okay? We eventually got to this step, and then we just needed to perform 2 or 3 other steps, and we're done. Where we began with both of these is I had the cards to be captured at the top of the deck. So in the case of the rich get richer, I had the Ace of Diamonds, 10 of Diamonds, and Jack of Diamonds at the very top of the deck. Okay, so those 3 cards were up here, and then the rest of the deck was below them. So what I did was I riffle shuffled in such a way that I left the top 3 cards undisturbed. Okay, so that's how I preserved them at the top. It's not too difficult to do. I've talked about how to do that in other videos, and I can show you again here how to do it. But if you remember, what we did was I allowed you to dictate how many cards we dealt from the top, middle, and bottom. Now, as you know, when you deal cards to the table, it reverses the order. So it'll actually be, this one goes to the bottom, and then C2 will go next, and then however many capturing cards you have, it's important that you deal those out. And then what will happen is, from there, there'll be a certain number of cards that are dealt according to whatever the spectator tells you to do. Okay, so we have what I've called the N indifferent cards, some number of additional cards whose identities are not important. Let's apply it to the rich get richer. That is what I had at the very top of the deck, those 3 cards. So as I dealt those to the table, when I started dealing into that single pile near the very beginning of that routine, I had to be sure that I dealt at least 3 cards from the top, namely these. So these got dealt to the table. So this would be at the very bottom. This one would be second from the bottom. And then the Jack of Diamonds would be third, okay? And so maybe I dealt some additional cards from there, from the top, and then eventually I chose some from the middle, and then I chose some from the bottom, okay? So that's what these N and different cards are referring to. And it doesn't matter what their identities are. We don't care what these cards are, okay? And then think about it. At that point, what I did was I sandwiched these cards between, I'll just call it C for capturing cards. It actually doesn't matter which one's on top or which one's on bottom necessarily. Okay, so I sandwiched this packet. You chose this packet. You told me how many to deal from the top, middle, and bottom, and then I just sandwiched our capturing cards on the top and bottom. Okay, and then if you remember what we did, we're almost to this step here. What we did is we simply did first shall be last, and the last shall be first, shuffle. Okay, so that is where you begin dealing them out into piles until the spectator says stop, and then you deal another set of cards out into a pile, stop, and so forth. And then if you stack from right to left, as you've seen in previous videos, that's equivalent to a packet reversal. It just reverses the order of the cards. Guess what? That's the magic step. Because reversing the order of these cards puts us exactly in the situation in step 1. So what this means then is once we reverse the order of all of these, we are now in the important position we need to be in for the capture principle to work its magic. So the reversing of these is an essential step to be able to get us here. And it's essential for a couple of reasons. It puts us in the right organization for the packet, but it also introduces some twists and turns to the whole effect that is giving the spectator a lot of choices that they're making freely. Okay, so they're very much affecting how things are playing out. And that's true, up to a degree. The thing that's maybe not clear to them, hopefully, is that this first shall be last, last shall be first shuffle is actually just reversing the order of all the cards. Okay, and so once we've reversed the order, so that means these blue cards will be at the top and the remaining cards will be at the bottom. And then from there, you just have to deal out one more than the number of cards to be captured. Okay, so in the case of the rich get richer, we dealt out 4 because we had 3 cards to be captured. And in the case of the why everyone loves them, we dealt out 3, spelling ace, spelled out 3 because we had 2 cards to be captured, namely the companion cards to the prediction cards. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of how this principle was applied to those 2 applications. Okay, here I'm just making clear that these, quote, indifferent cards, the number of cards beyond the cards to be captured, which for this one is 3, we need at least 5 or more for all of this to work, which isn't too hard to do. It's not, the spectator is going to have you deal out quite a few cards. And then it's the same thing for the why everyone loves them. Beyond the top 2 cards being dealt to the table, we just need to be sure that we deal out at least 5 more altogether. Okay, not hard to do because that's only 7 cards total. This is only 8 cards total, a very small packet. Okay, so here's also a picture of how this relates to what we have over here, okay, in the case of these individual performances. And then what I thought we would do is I have written up all of the steps I went through for these 2 performances. So the rich get richer. Let's quickly step through these. So place the ace of diamonds, 10 of diamonds, jack of diamonds at the top of the deck. First, riffle shuffle the deck without disturbing those 3 cards. With the cards facing you, pull out the king of diamonds and queen of diamonds without disturbing the order of the rest of the cards, and point that out to the spectator so they don't think you're doing anything funny. Regarding your choice of the king of diamonds and queen of diamonds, make it appear as if you're just randomly choosing two cards. And if you go back and watch my performance, that's what I did. I made it out as if I didn't know ahead of time which cards I was going to choose, but in fact I did. I wanted these two so that I could complete a royal flush right there. And then you begin dealing the cards to the table, dealing off at least the top three. 1, 2, 3. So three or more cards. Then deal some from the middle. Once the spectator says stop, dealing from the top. And then when they say stop, then you can begin dealing from the bottom until they tell you a third stop, and then you're done. That will deal out all of the quote indifferent cards. Okay, the cards beyond the top three cards. Okay, and it doesn't matter how many of those are, as long as you deal out at least 8 total, which I pointed out a second ago. And then you sandwich your dealt out cards between the king of diamonds and queen of diamonds. And it actually doesn't matter, but you can put the king of diamonds on top and the queen of diamonds at the bottom. And now you can decide whether you prefer having those face up or face down. I had them face down. I think that's probably a better choice because it helps hide kind of the method, what's going on here. And then this is one of the magical steps here. We need to reverse the order of the packet, all of the cards. We need to reverse the order of those cards, okay? And so that's what I was referring to here. So we have the special cards at the top, the rest of the deck, you deal them to the table. It'll look like this, but we need these back on top, right? For this principle to apply, the cards to be captured need to be on top, okay? So we can do that by just reversing the order of these cards, and that will do it. And the way that we did it is this first shall be last and last shall be first, which is a wonderful shuffle because it very much gives the impression that the cards are being mixed in a way that's decided by the spectator, since they're the ones saying stop, as you deal out piles from left to right. And then all I did was I coded, which code stands for count out and transfer. I spelled out king, K-I-N-G, setting down one card for each letter in the name, and then I dropped the rest on top. Well, what that does is it performs this step right here. Deal out the first. So here we have 3 cards to be captured. So I need to deal out 4. Well, there's 4 letters in the name king, so that's perfect. And then this next step really is accomplishing what I recommended earlier. Namely, if you don't do this, you're going to have one of your capturing cards will be at the bottom of the deck. It'll be like that. Okay? That's not very nice. So if you kind of spell out queen, you can spell out any word here actually, with maybe 2 letters or more, but not more than the number of indifferent cards here. So I recommend just queen, it'll be perfect. So that will move a bunch of cards from here to down here. And so what it means then is your capturing cards will be kind of located somewhere in the middle-ish of the packet, which I think aesthetically and logistically is a better place for them to be. I mean, having it at the bottom is going to raise suspicions and probably tip off the spectator as to the method. Okay, so this is a good move to make. And then you're done. So reveal that the king of diamonds and queen of diamonds have captured or sandwiched these, which would complete a royal flush. Amazing, amazing. Okay, and then, so that is for the rich shall get richer. Now let's quickly look at why everyone loves them so that you have this and can refer to it. And if you just perform these steps, if you kind of understand what's going on, you can always add other twists and turns to the whole thing without harming the end result. So for the first one, the rich get richer, there was some setup, right? We had to put the 3 cards at the top, and then I had to preserve them at the top through a bunch of riffle shuffling. Well, what's wonderful about this one is there's no setup, none. You can truly be handed a random deck of cards. Wow. And then you would simply pull out the ace of spades and the queen of hearts, and maybe mention that among cards, those are 2 of the most popular or beloved, I guess. And then with the cards facing you, pull out the companion cards to the top 2 cards. So let me just quickly show you that. If you've watched any of my Into the Future videos, you're very familiar with this idea. Okay, so let's say we have actually pulled out the ace of spades and queen of hearts. Those are set out. And now, so this is what you're doing to choose your prediction cards. So you take the shuffled deck from the spectator, and you have it tilted towards you. And what you're doing is you're just noting the color and value of those top 2 cards. That's all you need to remember. So as you go, so I'm thinking black 3, red ace. So I'm looking for the other black 3 or red ace. So black 3 or red ace. So black 3, there's the red ace, there's the other one. And then a black 3, oh, it's right there. There you go. Now don't change the order of the other cards. And you make a big deal about that. The spectator might get a little worried that you've just looked at the cards. So certainly don't rearrange any of them. And you don't want them rearranged because your 2 special cards are at the top. You want them to stay there, right? So you put your little prediction cards off to the side somewhere, okay? And now you're in a similar situation to the rich get richer because the important cards are at the top, okay? I guess I probably should just go ahead and pull out so that we can just step through this whole thing, I guess. Ace of spades, queen of hearts, just so you can kind of see that. There they go. So you see these would have been pulled out, okay? And then you chose your prediction cards, which are just the companion cards to the top cards, okay? And now what you do is you begin dealing the rest of the cards. Let me just set these over here. The rest of the cards, meaning the cards beyond those 2, to the table. Now you have to be sure that you deal at least those 2 special cards. And the way to do it is just start dealing and then explain to the spectator. They can say stop whenever they like. Well, you're safe. You've already dealt them. So maybe they say stop. Very good. Take some from the middle. Stop. And then from the bottom. Very good. Okay. So you have this kind of random collection of cards, and they really are. They truly are random. But now what is not necessarily the case, you don't have any knowledge of any of these. Okay, so that's not true. You know something about the bottom 2 cards. But in terms of a random selection of cards, this is as random can be. Okay, so you have these cards right here. And let me just go ahead and just relate it to what I was talking about here with a little diagram. Okay, so we started with the companion cards at the top, the rest of the deck. And then I dealt out until the spectator said stop. Well, what that does is it puts our cards to be captured at the bottom. Well, that's not where we want them. Our cards to be captured for this capture principle to apply need to be moved back to the top. Okay, they need to be moved back to the top. Okay, the way to do that is we're going to perform the first shall be last, the last shall be first. Okay, and that will reverse the order of the cards. Now before we do that, we're going to remember we sandwich this freely chosen packet by the spectator. We sandwich it in between these 2 beloved cards. Okay, and now we need to reverse the order of these cards. So you just do the first shall be last. Maybe they say stop. stop, and so forth. And then, now it is essential that you stack from right to left, because otherwise it won't, quote, be a packet reversal. If you stack from left to right, that will genuinely begin to randomize cards. You don't want that. You need more control over the cards than that. So we just want a simple packet reversal, and that's what this shuffle will do, as long as you stack from right to left. Okay? Okay, so there we are. And then finally, we just spell out ace, right? And the reason we do that is because the top cards of interest for us will just be those two companion cards, two of them. And 2 plus 1 is 3. So we need to deal out 3 cards. Well, we chose the ace because it has 3 letters in it. So A, C, E, drop the rest on top. And then as before, spelling out queen, what that does is it avoids having a capturing card at the very bottom of the packet. Okay, so if you just spell out queen, Q-U-E-E-N, it kind of buries the capturing cards, between which we have the captured cards, somewhere kind of in the middle. Okay, and we'll see that now because we're done. So if we go like this, and so what you're looking for is you tell the spectator, you say, do you see our ace of spades and queen of hearts? Oh, there's the ace of spades. Oh, there's the queen of hearts. Is there anything between those two of interest? Let's see, so ace of spades. Oh, that's kind of interesting. It captured 2 cards. And if you remember over here, we chose 2 prediction cards. That's kind of curious. It's the same number of cards. I wonder if there's any connection between these. And you just pick up your prediction cards and go, what the heck? That's the companion card to the 3 of clubs. There's no, I can't believe this. We found the companion card to the ace of diamonds. How did you just happen to make a series of choices which were made freely? I didn't influence you, and if I did, boy, that is true magic. It led to this. You ended up capturing the companion cards to my prediction cards. And then you can just, point out that now we've shown why these 2 cards are so loved by everyone, because they're amazing or have amazing properties, or however you want to explain that from there. So anyway, that is the capture principle. At the core of it is a simple principle. It truly is a simple principle, but with a couple of twists and turns in it that serve a functional purpose as well as an obfuscation purpose. It turns this simple little principle into something very, very surprising. So anyway, have fun with that. That's a fun little principle. So play with that, and boy, there are so many different variations using this principle at their core that could be created. Okay, so I encourage you to try to do that. Come up with your own effects using this most remarkable, though simple, principle. So thank you for watching.